public. People keep coming, which is okay.
По поводу вот третьей части наших домашних заданий, третьего блока, вы как-то еще тоже прокомментируете?
Да, если по поводу, так сказать, обзора рынка вы имеете в виду?
Да, да.
Okay, yes, I will do that. So now we have 260 people nearly, and probably you need the links to my videos. I hope you will be able to see all of them actually. Okay, somewhere closer to the end of the lecture, I will do that. So not to waste your time right now. Concerning the third task, the market overview, I think the best examples you can find in two magazines is The Economist and Financial Times. If you go to The Economist and Financial Times, by the way, all cameras should be switched on, please. Well, I hate sitting in front of black screens. Therefore, please switch on your cameras. This is most impolite actually to sit during the lecture with your camera switched off. Please switch on your cameras. I will not start another lecture. Chen Yang, camera on. Tang Xiao Chen, camera on. If you don't switch. But I can't see it. I can't actually sit in front of the just black screens. This is very impolite. So I would expect the cameras to be switched on. This is the necessary condition of presence. All right, microphones off, cameras are on. This is the necessary condition. All right. So once again, the third task in your agenda is the market overview. In order to understand how this works, I recommend you just opening theeconomist.com and go to the market section, and you will see for yourselves how the top professional journalists are writing about the markets, are describing the markets. You can also find it in such publications as Financial Times. I can just show you the screen right now so that you would have an idea about how it actually works. So this is Financial Times. So as you can see, the address is ft.com. So in ft.com, there is markets, right? You can go to the markets and then you can choose anything that you want. You want, for example, equities markets or metal exchange or special purpose acquisition companies, big read, and so on and so forth. So you can choose anything. Semiconductors, oil. Okay, let me go to oil, for example. I will open it and you need to subscribe. Well, I'm actually subscribed, but generally speaking, if you're thinking about becoming professional business people, it would be good if you subscribe to the Financial Times, at least occasionally, because this is one of the top world publications in the world that is publishing the top news and in economics, in the world economics. Therefore, Financial Times should be on your agenda. Therefore, it will make sense going there, reading how the market is described, and imitating the style of the article, actually focusing on this or that thing. But I will once again emphasize this aspect, the market description, for you in several terms, and I think it's going to be pretty easy, because the description of the market is the description of your potential of the potential customers that you would have for your business. Therefore, it will make sense describing who these people are, what their age structure is, what the demography of your market, potential market is, what is their education, what is their gender structure, and how many children they have, whether some of them live in their native country or immigrated to other countries. That's, for example, if you think about the Kyrgyz market, the market of Kyrgyzstan, for example. you would be surprised that, for example, the market of Kyrgyzstan for you is located not only in Kyrgyzstan, but it is also located in Russia, because over 2 million people, Kyrgyz people, live actually in Russia. Therefore, these people, if you, for example, want to set up a business that will be oriented, targeted at people from Asia, like, for example, opening restaurants or tailoring a particular kind of suits or dress, right, or footwear, and so on and so forth, that will be directed at these people, you'll be thinking about the market that is staying here. And this is very important. Well, I'm speaking to you about, for example, Kyrgyz or Uzbek people or Kazakh people or Tajik people who live in Russia. But the interesting thing is that many of these people actually come to Russia to stay. And this means that they're not going to return to their native countries, it seems. So they're going to get education here. Their children is going education here, and they're going to develop in this country. Their future, their perspective is this, but they're very sincerely rooted in their national tradition, and they think about their native development as for being the representatives of their nationality, like Kyrgyz, Kazakh, Tajik, Uzbeks, and so on and so forth. But many of them want to stay and live in Russia. Therefore, if you want, for example, if you're thinking about these potential people as your market, you will say, all right, I understand the preferences, the desires of these people, their traditional preferences, and so on and so forth. And you describe their age structure, gender structure, the structure of the family, their incomes, and how their incomes grow or fall, how their incomes is distributed in this market. So this is the description of your market. So the description of the market is the collective representation of your potential customers. That's the market. So if you think, for this course of lectures, by the way, I understand that maybe not all of you want to become businessmen. It's okay, it's all right. But at least for the sake of an experiment, for understanding how business works, it's good to choose for this particular course, at least for the sake of an experiment, some kind of a business or some kind of a direction in the economy that you will be analyzing throughout the whole semester. Therefore, when you're describing a certain market, you're describing something that is not necessarily something that is of your own interest, but something that, from your point of view, could be an interesting analysis from the point of view of developing your skills in starting your own business and then developing it further on. Okay, so that's the market. Business model is not only filling in the boxes, but also providing some explanation under the boxes. A pitch is a short speech presented very briefly, focusing on value. Value is as I said last time, is a product of your analysis, is a product of your vision, not necessarily in economic terms, but in terms of usability, usefulness of what you're going to present to the market. And very, very soon, in about 10 days' time, we shall have a colloquium. And then this colloquium will be conducted in the form of a business game. In the form of the business game that will be, that is being supported by MTS, they agreed. So we shall be providing our own vision, experimentally, of course, of some of their products. And we shall see there how you are positioning yourself already as a potential businessman. But as I said last time, one of the most important things, as I see for myself during this semester, is, of course, your ability to communicate with the market. That's highly important. Your ability to communicate with the market, to express your vision to the market. And it's not an easy thing to present something that is that the market is not necessarily seeing for themselves as something of great necessity. Okay, let me begin with something which is very, very basic, and then I will move to some details. The very basic thing is, once you have an idea, you think about starting this business. But starting a business presupposes money, but something that we call capital, right? It's not just money that you are going to spend actually buying something, not necessarily, but it is something that will allow you to start working on a regular basis, because starting a business actually is getting a new job, and getting a new job is really a highly important thing, because this means that you will have to spend half of your life doing your business. And the first thing that you do in starting your business is you begin to think about what is going to generate your product, what is going to generate your service. And when I think about generating your service or your product, I mean, think in terms of the machinery, think in terms of a certain equipment that will generate something that you will then sell in the market. For example, if you want to manufacture glasses, just ordinary glasses, so you need a special equipment that will be actually doing this, that will be providing this kind of items that you will then sell with particular qualities. Then you may think of anything, just of any product, doesn't matter what. There should be something that will be used as some sort of a source for the manufacturing of your product. So this is the first thing that you think about. You say you need an equipment, you need a source, you need something that will generate this item that you are going to sell in the market. And by the way, this is not necessarily material. This is not necessarily material, because it's one thing when you're thinking of manufacturing something material, it's okay. You may generate something that is made of plastic, that is made of wood, and so on and so forth. But you may also think of services. And when you think of services, for example, you want to, I don't know, to open a clinic and provide medical services, or you want to open the language classes. And in language classes, you are delivering the services of a teacher, or even if you take the mobile telecommunication services, what is it that you are selling in the market? What is it that you are selling in the market? You are selling telecommunication services, but it is something that should be generated using something. What is this something? This something that is the basis of your product or your service is something that we call an asset. It's an asset. Asset is a word that is used not to describe something very broad, like like tables and chairs and buildings and so on and so forth. No, an asset is your basic equipment, is your basic source of your key item or key service that you are going to sell in the market. That's an asset. Актив. Актив – это оборудование. Актив – это источник того объекта, который вы продаете на рынке. So that's an asset. So an asset is highly important, because and you may think naturally of having an asset that will be up to date, very modern, latest, not very expensive, and this is an asset that you very often will be calling fixed assets. Fixed assets is translated into Russian very often as основные средства. Основные средства. So fixed assets, основные средства. Основные средства – это то, на чем производится ваш основной товар или ваша основная услуга. As a fixed assets. In addition to fixed assets, you would have current assets. Current assets – это оборотные средства. Ну, условно говоря, принтер. Предположим, вы на принтере печатаете что-нибудь, оказываете услуги. So the printer is your fixed assets, but the powder and paper that you use, that will be current assets. It means that it's renewable. You are bringing it again and again. And it's interesting that very often fixed assets are sold in the market by asset generating companies at a very low rate. Actually, there is no, it's not very expensive. But when you think of current assets, very often these inventories, they're called very often inventories, запасы. Не случайно же есть в русском языке слово инвентаризация. Что такое инвентаризация? So this is inventory audit. Inventory audit. This is usually done in order to see how much of the current assets is actually stored in your warehouses where you're saving it. All right, an asset. But the great question is, in order to become a businessman, what do you need to have? Money, asset, or brain? What do you think is necessary in order to say to oneself, I'm a businessman. I want to start a business. What is the first thing to do? Many people would have a lot of money, but they wouldn't know what to do. Therefore, having money is important. But the question is, can you turn this money into a capital? So money is a very general word. Money is not a word that is used in economics, actually. In economics, there are either expenses or there is a capital. So a capital is a money that you invest so that later on your money grows, actually, and you get a surplus. You get a surplus. Well, that's дополнительная стоимость. So, or if you have a brain, for example, if you have good brain, but you don't have money, do you think it's good for you to start a business? Because therefore it says, I'm clever, I'm smart, I know how to start a business. Generally speaking, if people give me $1 million, I know how to spend every penny that I'm having of the money that is given to me. If you have this capacity, if you have this capacity, then probably you answer positively. Then you say, well, okay, I can be a businessman because I know, first of all, how a certain demand can be satisfied. Secondly, I know how to spend the money that is given to me, the capital, in a thrift manner. And then I know how to sell the product that I have most effectively in the market so that people would know how it works. Because very often, clever people tend to be clever and smart in generating an asset, but very often they wouldn't know how to sell it. They wouldn't know how to sell their product. That's important. If they wouldn't know how to sell their product, then they need to find a commercial director who will be selling that. So there is a great question. When on the one hand, you know everything about an asset that you're going to have. Very often this is called property, plant, and equipment. So this term consists of 3 words: property, plant, and equipment. So I can actually show it on the screen, something that you can see for yourselves. Maybe here. Oh no, here. So there will be an asset here, and this will consist of 2 things: fixed assets, and it will also consist of current assets. And fixed assets are very often called PPE. PPE is property, plant, and equipment. So it's good to know what fixed assets is. Fixed assets is a property, plant, and equipment. So this means that you need to do something in order to start generating your service or your product. But the great question is, where do you take the money? Where do you take the money from in order to start your business? Okay, you are clever, you are smart, you know how to begin, you know how to count money, and you are very thrift, economical in every respect. But the great question is, where do you take the money? But well, okay, the first step can be three F's, right? The famous source: friends, fools, and family, right? friends, fools, and family. So that's a very traditional way to start your business. Spontaneously, right? Yes, people very often begin business by asking their friends to invest. People very often begin business by asking their family to invest money. And people ask fools, actually, offering to people who are prepared to spend money without knowing why they're investing. It happens. There's a very often this very primitive formula works perfectly, actually, in the beginning, friends, fools, and family. But then you think that friends, fools, and family is not a very good thing to do, because you want to develop on a more or less regular basis. And since you want to develop in a more or less regular basis, you are thinking of a different kind of source for your money that was going to be transformed into a capital. All right. The bulk of everything that you are going to take money from is called liabilities. Right? That's very famous, and I don't think that I'm saying anything new to you. So liabilities, and liabilities can be, as I said, something that we, in a very conversational manner, call friends, fools, and family. But in fact, this part is called equity. So equity is something that officially is called собственный капитал компании. Собственный капитал компании. So that's equity. But equity is not everything, and very often it may not be enough to start a business. Then you go and you go to the bank and you ask a debt. And debt is something that you need to return later on. And normally there would be a certain proportion between debt and equity that will make you feel more or less comfortable when you're starting business, because you use this money, debt and equity, for what purpose? What is the purpose of attracting money into your business? You use this money because you want to spend debt and equity in order to buy assets. That's the reason. I will not put an arrow. So it's so you use equity, and not equity but debt. You use liability actually to buy assets. That is why this kind of table that you see now on the screen is called balance sheet. It is called balance sheet. So a balance sheet is something that is, it's one of the most important most important kind of statements or reports that a company would have in order to speak to the investor. So that's a balance sheet. Why is it a balance sheet? Because the amount of liabilities is equal to the amount of assets. You take so much money, and then you spend so much money actually to buy fixed assets and current assets and to start your business. But the question is, what would be your suggestion about the proportion between debt and equity? What do you think should be the amount of equity, meaning your own money, your own funds, your own capital that you have from your pocket, and debt, something that you are going to take from the bank? And naturally, debt comes with interest, right? That's the difficult thing, because interest is something that you need to pay in addition to your debt. Therefore, if you take $10, you need to return $10 plus interest, and naturally you should generate this interest if you want to survive in the market, right? And if you want to live for a long time. So that's interest. But the question is interesting. What do you think about equity? Do you think there is any need to return anything to someone who gave money on the equity basis, on the basis of participating in the capital of the company. What is your idea about this? So imagine a friend of yours comes to you and says, hi, I'm going to start a good business. I'm going to be very profitable, and so on and so forth. Will you give you the money? Then you say, all right, let's sign an agreement, a shareholding agreement. Fine. You give him $1 million for what? If it is debt, it's clear, right? He says, well, give me debt and give me a loan. You take a loan, right? And then you, some time passes, and then you return to this person and say, okay, give me back my $1 million plus interest. That's one thing. But the question is, if it is equity, if it is not debt, if it is a loan, you are not a banker, what is it that you are supposed to return to that person who gave you this money? You can write in chat, by the way, so your ideas about that, because very often people think in terms of dividends, the so-called dividends. But I'm telling you secretly that Daniel, you may say you actually.
If there is no regulation in an agreement, for example, there are no opportunity to get back these interests.
Exactly. So this is not the interest act, but this is something that you are expected to return, right? But you don't know what is it that you're going to return. But therefore, many people think that, and this is a very primitive vision of the business. Many people think that if you give $1 million to somebody, and this somebody says, I want to start a business using your money, and then you think, okay, what do you expect? That person may be very foolish, and he will say, I expect dividends, for example. Why foolish? I take a very famous example of Warren Buffett, who was one of the most famous investors in the world, one of the richest person in the world. And when he was said, actually he was asked about whether a company should be paying dividends, she said, of course not. So his idea is that the company should not be paying dividends. Now, the great question is, why do you think the company should not be paying dividends? Because when Warren Buffett was reminded of the fact that on one occasion he was actually paying dividends to somebody, he said, I was probably either taking shower or sleeping. That's what I was doing. Когда Уоррена Баффета спросили, нужно ли платить дивиденды, он говорит, что это полное сумасшествие. Платить дивиденды не нужно. А Уоррен Баффет один из крупнейших инвесторов. И когда ему напомнили, что он, возможно, в какой-то момент сам платил дивиденды акционерам, он сказал, ну, возможно, я либо спал, либо мылся в душе. То есть, ни в каком трезвом уме, твердой памяти я не стал бы никому платить дивиденды. Now the question is why? What is it not looking? Does it not look as a sort of a cheating of the shareholder? You understand that a shareholder is giving you money, quite a substantial amount of money, but for some purpose. There should be some reason why this particular investor is giving you the money. Аня, бескровно у вас там рука поднята. Скажите, поднятой рукой. Заодно и камеру включите. Right. У вас там рука поднята, поэтому я думал, вы спросите что-нибудь. No, okay. So, what is your idea? Because this is one of the most important principles of doing business. Because investment is a sizable part, is a considerable part of doing business. And normally, small businesses, of course, they work without investors. But big companies, they cannot do without investors. Investment is a very serious part of doing business. Therefore, you need to know why people are giving you a certain amount of money, and quite a bit of money, actually. All right, what's your ideas? You can write in chat. But while you're writing in chat, I will explain as I see it. Again, the general idea and most typical idea in this particular case is that people give you money because they expect that your company will grow in value. That's important. They think that your company will grow in value. That's their expectation. And when they think about the growth of the value of the company, there should be some kind of measurement in the market, right? There should be some kind of measurement in the market. Because just imagine yourselves. Представьте себя инвестор. So imagine yourselves. You have quite a bit of money, then you give it to somebody, and then the owner of this company says, okay, wait, 5 years. In 5 years' time, the value of my company will be much higher. I say, how shall I know that your company becomes more valuable? What is the measurement? What is the instrument to check that the value of the company increased? So I will give you $10, and then in return, I will get 1,000. How to know about that? What would be the ways to measure that, that return that you are having back? What is return? Return это ваш доход. Если банк получает, the money can be spent on business development instead. Yes, I agree. So when you get debt or loan from the market, from the bank, you will need to return money plus interest. Wonderful. And the bank is expecting interest. When you are an investor, you give me the money, you expect ROI, ROI, return on investment. So there should be something that allows you to know how much money you are earning. Okay, there are two ways to measure that. Two ways to measure that. The first way is the following: your company becomes public. If your company becomes public, then what is public? What is the public company? A public company means that there is no one shareholder, but there are hundreds of shareholders in the market. And the market and the company is actually traded. The shares of the company is traded in the stock exchange, на биржах фондовых, in stock exchange. And then you will know that your piece of paper that is called your security, right? It's called your security. What is security? Security is ценная бумага. Ценная бумага. The security that you are selling is today $1, tomorrow it can be $2, the day after tomorrow it can be $3, and so on and so forth. So all in all shares that are being sold in the stock exchange collectively, they form the so-called capitalization, market capitalization. So this means that if today your securities are being sold at $100 per item, and tomorrow at $200, then your company becomes suddenly very, very expensive. And that is the time to sell your company, to sell your company, because it becomes very, very expensive. You want to sell it and become suddenly rich. Therefore, if you give $1 to a company, then you look at the performance of the company in the market, and during this performance of the company in the market, you will know how much money you actually earn. That's important. That's how you make money. If you don't have ideas, but you have $1 million in the pocket, don't let your $1 million die in your pocket, right? Give it to somebody who will transform your money, not into more money. That's a mistake, but will transform your money into value. That's important. Into value, meaning into something that will be treated by the market as something of high usefulness standard. Take, for example, Nokia. Do you remember Nokia telephones? You probably do. Meaning it has been some time. Well, Nokia actually died completely, right? So the company is no longer existent. But you probably know their first product that they were making, they were manufacturing. If you don't know, okay, I will remind you. So the first product of Nokia was toilet paper. Toilet paper. Nokia was manufacturing toilet paper, and this is incredible how a shift was made from a toilet paper to telephone. Meaning you can't imagine possibly how this transition can be made from a toilet paper to a telecommunication device. And this is done by the investigation of the markets. They were doing it in the forests. They're needing a lot of wires and electricity, and that is why they started producing the wires and developing the new electricity technology. And then little by little, they came to the production of a telecommunication device. But they actually died because iPhone appeared, and this was an absolutely new revolutionary technology. Therefore, they had to be very, very fast in changing their pace, but they failed. So as a result, their value fell down tragically. The value, meaning the telephone was okay. Meaning, if you think of Nokia, I still have Nokia somewhere in my pockets occasionally, and I'm using it. But as compared to smartphones, their value suddenly actually dwindled completely. So, and today, what do you think, for example, of the future of photo cameras? Do you think this is the end of photo cameras? Do you think that cameras are dead? I mean, if you think of great companies who are producing cameras, I don't know, like Kodak and so on and so forth, they should be dead already by this time, because the increasing technology of the increasing optical technology is just fantastic. As a result, all those companies who are manufacturing and producing telephones, they should go bust. Why? Not because they're stupid, not because they have no money, not because the equipment is bad. No, it's because they lost their markets. Why have they lost their market? Because they cannot find a new market that will understand their value. Компании банкротятся не потому, что у них пропали деньги. Компании банкротятся, потому что они растеряли свое представление о потребительской стоимости своего товара. Value. So the value is such a delicate thing to think about. You know, it's like a woman you are marrying. You are marrying a woman and she can change. And then, or a man whom you are marrying. They can change overnight and you don't know whether you married successfully or not very successfully. You don't know. So this is always, this is a very thin, a very delicate matter, right? All right. So you got enough money from the bank, if you want. You got enough money from your friends, and you have this structure that I showed you previously. This one. My last question is, what should be the proportion of debt and equity? Well, normally, I would say debt should not be more than 30%, and equity should be around 70%. So that's what will make your company feel normal. So if your company owns 70% of equity and have only 30% of debt, then it will be okay. But if you think that now you will go to the bank and you will get more money and you think that the best proportion will be 50-50, it becomes very dangerous actually, and your company probably will not cope with the amount of interest that you will have to pay to the bank from time to time. And since we know about the risks that you may be having in doing your business, the likelihood that you will continue to be profitable is not very high. All right, I will return to the explanation of other kinds of balance sheet later on, because this I gave you a very superficial vision of the basic document of the company, of every company in business, which is called balance sheet, which is consisting of two parts, assets and liabilities. And assets will consist of two parts. Once again, fixed assets, or otherwise stated, property, plant and equipment, and current assets, основные средства, оборотные средства, and liabilities. Liabilities it's called liabilities because in English, liability means обязательство. Liability, it means that you need to return your money to somebody, right? So, and you return money actually to the bank plus interest, and you return nothing to the shareholder except probably dividends, maybe. It depends largely on the agreement that you have with shareholders. But normally it will be more beneficial for a shareholder, of course, to have the increased value rather than dividends, because the money that the company is paying to the shareholders in the form of dividends can actually be returned to business in order to buy more assets, as a result, to increase the value of your business. So that will be even better. Therefore, you are thinking about this as a very important part of your entrepreneurial activity. Great, fantastic. The next thing you are thinking about is, of course, the general behavior of an economist in the market. And here, of course, naturally, the first thing you're thinking about is what is economics? What is economics? Because once you make the first step in doing business, you understand that you start doing economics. Okay, now probably you will provide me with some kind of definition of economics. How do you understand economics? You can explain it to me in most general terms. Because without that explanation, probably you wouldn't know a lot of details about doing business. And many people define economics as a way to save money. Others just defined it's a theory that studies economy. I'm not quite sure this is a very good definition for doing business, because it's too theoretical, right? You need something that will help you do business effectively. Therefore, it is more theoretical, yes. So we need some kind of definition of economics that will help us as business people. Therefore, this definition, theory that studies economy, is not acceptable for us. Okay, give me something else, some other definition of economics that you think will help you as businessmen, as an entrepreneur for the future. Many people think that economics is just a way of making money, but that's very superficial. A way of running a business. That's too general. Yes, I agree. The way of running a business, but you understand that this is not explaining anything. Okay, when you are providing this kind of definition, it is not explaining to you what you should be doing. But we need such an explanation that will give you some sort of a clue, some sort of advice or instruction what should be done, because economics is all about instruction. Economics is all about helping you gain that profit that you have. So Denise, economics has come to refer to careful management of society's scarce resources to avoid waste. Great, fantastic. This is something that I accept. Denise, very good. I like this definition, and let me comment on what you said, and then I will show you a small video explaining this sort of stuff. Scarce resources is a key word. It is a key word. Just remember that, all of you. So Denise found a very good definition. So scarce resources, avoiding waste. That's one of the key elements in the definition of the economics. So the management of scarce resources. This means that you should be capable of manufacturing something from a very, very little amount of material that you have. Meaning, you can say to anyone, you can do this for $1 million, and everyone can do it for $1 million. That's not the point. Do it for $5, then you will be a businessman. If you can do something for $1 million, you're not a businessman. You're a waster. Ты просто транжир. You're just a waster. You're not a business person. You're not an entrepreneur. Therefore, first thing you're thinking about is how to save it. Well, honestly, we have so many Chinese students here. Many Western businessmen for many years thought that a very good way to save money is to relocate their assets base to China. Because they were thinking that in China, the labor is very cheap and the manufacturing is very profitable, is very fast and efficient. Therefore, that was one of the ways to save money. But it cannot last forever, because China is also developing, right? And China is developing, is becoming more technologically advanced. People also become richer, and as a result, they would feel reluctant to do the job for a small amount of money. Therefore, little by little, step by step, China stops being a very attractive place for saving money. What would you do next? What would be the next step? Okay, China, so the end of China as a source of cheap resources. Okay, конец Китая как источника дешевых ресурсов. Замечательно. What is the next step? Because we want to use scarce resources, то есть маленькие ресурсы, недостаточные ресурсы, слабые ресурсы. И где же их взять? Где же их взять? Naturally, the answer is technologies, new technologies. If you have an opportunity to replace a human being. With a machine, you do that because machine is not asking for the increase of salary. Machine is just working for you. And last time I was giving you, for example, a very good example. I was giving you a very good example of how one of the biggest energy companies in Russia, Interrao, is using its assets that they generated in the 40s, в 40-х годах. Теплоэлектростанции компании Interrao, многие из них, они были построены в 40-х годах. Господи, когда же это было? Это же было 100 лет назад. And they still work. And they still work. And this means that this is a way to save money to a certain extent, because you think that these assets still generate commodity. Что такое commodity? Commodity — это то, что продается на рынке. Commodity. Это то, что это ваш товар. Commodity. So, and they still sell it. And naturally, you're thinking of replacing people with technology, and you think that technology will save you a lot of money. So, scarce resources, and the use of scarce resources is highly important. Is a highly important thing, and that's what economics is. So, economics is a way of achieving something that will make you a very profitable, a very well-off business person, because you want stability. And if you want stability, you need something that will keep you well-off, rich for many years. Many of you are very young, right? And if you start a business, for example, you want your business to last you up until the end of your life, up until the end when you get old, naturally, right? Because when you go and get employment, for example, for a certain amount of money to a certain company, you will get a salary, and then you will, who knows, maybe you will get tired, maybe you will get disqualified, and so on and so forth. Therefore, you are thinking probably of doing a business. But when you start a business, you want your business to sustain you for many years. And this is naturally, when you say for many years, you say for how long? And then you say at least 30 years or 40 years or 50 years. And then when you start thinking about 40 years or 50 years, you say, okay, what is the way to do this? And the basic way of doing that is, of course, by saving your resources, by managing scarce resources. Как это перевести? Управление ограниченными ресурсами. Управление ограниченными ресурсами. That's important. You say you have that small amount of resources that you will later use for manufacturing the item that costs a lot in the market, the price of which will be very high. And you say, I'm proud of the fact that I'm spending so little money and I'm producing so much value in market. But not so many people can do that. Знаете, кто-то скажет, знаете, я решил стать предпринимателем. И что ты делаешь? А я, говорит, продаю 100-рублевые банкноты. Да, говорит, и за сколько ты их продаешь? Она говорит, за 50 рублей. Да ты что? Говорит, ну как бизнес идет? Говорит, шикарно бизнес идет, просто обороты, говорит, феерические. А доход считал? Говорит, нет, пока не считал, говорит. Но обороты просто фантастические. So, this is a stupid example, of course. So this is, but very often people think of business like that. They sell a 100-ruble banknote for 50-ruble banknote, right? And they think that the turnover is fantastic, right? But they never come to the bottom line, and they do not know how their business is developing. Okay, let me show you a small video explaining the same things as I said, but not from my mouth, but from the mouth of some other economist. I hope the quality will be okay. I hope so, because the internet seems to be fine. So can you see my screen? Okay, let's go.
When you're 5 years old, you think there are no constraints. And that's why little kids are not good economists. For adults, there are constraints, and therefore economics has something to say about it. So economics is the study of the allocation of scarce resources and why people make the choices about scarce resources that they make.
resources broadly put, from land to natural resources, to people's time, to people's affection, to people's mental capacities.
I like to think of economics as more of a way of understanding the world and understanding how, anyone from a single person to an entire nation makes decisions that will affect their future.
Oh, sorry.
Sure.
You decide whether or not you want to live on campus or off campus. There are different costs involved. It'd be more or less expensive to do one or the other. There are other things which we can think of as costs. How much time would you spend on the bus versus being able to jump out of bed at the last minute and make it to class? That's an economics decision.
Well, my favorite example is choosing a life partner. You're taught from early age, wait for Mr. Right, find the dream girl. It's bad advice because there are search costs. Finding Mr. Right takes effort. You have to buy clothing, you have to waste time. If you're a guy, you have to be presentable. You can't party with your friends. That's an opportunity cost. So the rational thing to do is not to search for Mr. Right, but to search for Mr. Pretty Good. Not to search for your dream girl, but to search for your daydream girl.
One of the areas that I find interesting involves behavioral decisions that individuals make that influence their health. For instance, smoking. Why do individuals decide to start smoking? If they do smoke, how much do they smoke? And if they decide to quit, why do they decide to quit? A lot of people would say decision about whether or not to smoke and how much to smoke shouldn't involve economics at all. And in fact, before taxing cigarettes was very commonplace, a lot of politicians would just conjecture that if we tax cigarettes, it's not going to influence behavior because smokers are addicted. So this is not a rational behavior, so why are we even discussing how price might influence what someone who's smoking decides to do?
Okay. I don't know how good the quality was of what you saw. I hope it was pretty good. And you could at least just not. Okay. So they were describing economics also in conjunction with another term that is probably new to you. And this term is opportunity cost. Opportunity cost. Opportunity cost is an important term for economics, because opportunity cost is the value that you get when is a value that you get when making a certain economic decision. For example, they were giving an example, but I will give you more examples. You decide to buy Mercedes and not to buy the latest Hyundai, for example. That is your decision, and you say, well, I need Mercedes because it is more expensive, because it is more showy, because it is more respectable to have a Mercedes, for example, and I'm not thinking about Hyundai. But they say, have you thought of the new brands of Hyundai, something like Sonata or Genesis? They look actually more attractive than Mercedes. So you make decision in favor of Mercedes or in favor of Hyundai, but then you should actually be prepared to get the consequences. Вы делаете выбор в пользу того или иного товара, который вы покупаете, а потом вы несете ответственность за тот товар, который вы купили. Вы решили поступить в Московский государственный университет. Почему-то. Но вы решили потратить какие-то деньги, чтобы поступить в Московский государственный университет. Окей. Вы тратите деньги, некоторые из вас, чтобы заплатить за образование. Но вы не пошли в высшую школу экономики или в какую-то другую школу, в какой-то другой университет. Вы деньги свои не дали туда. So, okay, you give the money to Moscow State University and not to High School of Economics. So the great question is why? This is the way you spend the money. For example, they say, education or tuition fees, плата за обучение, tuition fees in Moscow University is lower than in High School of Economics. I say, is it okay? You say, yes, I'm managing scarce resources. Я управляю ограниченными ресурсами. So I'm saving the money. And they say, what a fool you are. You will not get a job when you graduate from the university. Say, no. thing is, so it's not a problem really. You say it doesn't matter what school you finish. You can finish Moscow State University or High School of Economics or some other business academy or Skolkovo and so on and so forth. But the solution about whom to have rests fully in the hands of the employer, the future. And the difference between High School of Economics and Moscow State University is great. But this is only one very small example. But examples in the market can be great when you start manufacturing something using ordinary plastic or wood. But if you start, for example, manufacturing bottles using ordinary plastic, right? I'm not advertising. So I'm not advertising bottle, okay. So if you are deciding to produce bottles and pack the bottles in plastic, the consequences can be huge. This means that later on you can pay a lot in fines, in pennies, in penalty of all kinds. And then you will have to think about the consequences of that. Therefore, a matter of managing scarce resources is one of the key elements in doing business practically. You may have a very good idea about how to develop in the market and how to promote your technology in the market. You may have this idea. It's fantastic. But the next thing you will need to do is whether you can stay sustainable for many years. And sustainability is the second notion that you have in your mind. You know, it's one thing to give birth to a child. It's the second thing to bring this child up to the level when the child can actually earn the money himself or herself. And this is not a small thing to do. You will have to, for example, many of you will have children in the future. And when you will have children, think about their education. And you will say, all right, I'm going to give one of the most expensive educations to my child. You say, why? So because I want my child to be well off. I don't want to pay for my child when he or she grows up. And when your child grows up, you say, I want my child to be self-sufficient. Я хочу, чтобы мой ребенок был самодостаточным, чтобы он зарабатывал на себя деньги, чтобы он не висел у меня на шее всей своей семьей, своими многочисленными детьми и со своими проблемами. So therefore, in the beginning, you're thinking of investing a lot of money in your child. You are sending your child to the most expensive school. You go and take a loan from the bank so that your child could have the best education in the world. And if you want to have the best education in the world, which university you are thinking of? Сейчас скажут, конечно, Московский государственный университет. Но я не знаю, как насчет Московского государственного университета, но возможно, Стэнфордский университет. So possibly Stanford University. You may be thinking of going to Stanford University or sending your child there. Why? Because you know that now you invest a lot of money, but then in 20 years' time, this money is going to return to you in some sort of a new form or new ways. So economics is an art of managing scarce resources, is an art of avoiding waste. Because when you generate waste, when you create waste, you are actually not a businessman, right? You are creating not good but bad. By the way, the question that is quite interesting. You know the word goods, right? We have goods in the shop. When you go to the shop, you buy all sorts of goods. What is a good? Why is it called goods? And do you think there are also bads? That's a good economic question, right? Meaning, when you go to a shop, you buy goods, right? But can you buy bads? And you will be surprised that a bad is also a term, and it is an economic term. It is an economic term. So goods is something that have value, but a bad is something that does not give you any value, and yet you buy it. Okay, let me explain. For example, you are a driver, and you drive in a very inaccurate manner. You drive poorly. As a result, you have lots of fines, right? Okay, and you need to pay for all those violations of the traffic rules. You have to pay. Okay, you have to pay for that, And then suddenly, ГАИ, ГИБДД, they say, дорогие друзья, у нас для вас прекрасная новость. Мы создали приложение, которое автоматически будет снимать деньги с вашей карты за все штрафы, которые вы получили во время вождения. Классная новость, да? Замечательно. Ну, не стоять в очередях, ничего там. Сразу едешь и ни о чем не думаешь, нарушаешь, а деньги так чук-чук-чук-чук уходят. So this kind of service that is provided by ГИБДД would not be called good, would be called bad. It's bad. So you are paying for the bad. You are not paying for the good. You are paying for the bad. Why so? Because this is something that actually prevents you from normal living. That prevents you from comfortable living. Likewise, for example, there is a huge dumping area near your house. People actually throw all kinds of waste to a certain location near the house. Там такая свалка зловонная просто рядом с вашим домом находится. Okay. Then you say, who is creating that? You say, people from this flat and that flat and that flat. Okay, what do? You go and pay these people. For what? For taking away this rubbish. For not throwing their rubbish to that location. Вы платите за то, что в экономике называется bad. Это не good. Вы платите за bad. То есть ваша готовность платить за то, чтобы кто-нибудь не гадил вам под дверь, это в экономике называется bad. То есть не в смысле плохо, а есть товар, но я, честно говоря, никогда не задумывался о том, как переводится bad на русский язык. Но это товар с нулевой полезностью или с отрицательной полезностью. Кстати, как это полезность? Потому что товары продают, у нас есть слово value, и есть его экономический эквивалент. Товар. Да, абсолютно верно. Это называется utility. Спасибо, Настя. Это называется utility. So it's a utility. So it's something that, so when you create a particular item and you are trading in the market, you are thinking primarily whether it is having any kind of utility, what sort of utility you are selling, and then whether you are providing good or bad. Ну, хороший же бизнес создавать bad или плохой бизнес? Тоже же можно создавать bad. Тоже разновидность делания бизнеса. Да, Вель.
Ну, вот когда вы привели пример с тем, что штрафы автоматически списываются, да, для нас это bad, но допустим, для полиции, для ГИБДД это же good.
Но для них это способ заработка, но основанный на все-таки отрицательной полезности. Utility is zero. Потому что ничего не создается. Value is zero. Но, сказать, тарифы, например, тарифы коммуникационной связи, например, роуминг, безусловно, ну, конечно, он считается good, но я его считаю bad, потому что, сказать, пользу ты получаешь микроскопическую пользу, а расходы феерические. Вот, поэтому, сказать, ну, как бы соотношение, мы говорим, вот в русском языке есть выражение соотношение цена-качество. Что такое соотношение цена-качество? Соотношение цена-качество – это и есть value. То есть, условно говоря, за какие деньги ты покупаешь определенную полезность. За какие деньги ты покупаешь определенную полезность. Вот ты об этом думаешь, когда ты создаешь бизнес. Ну хорошо, когда ты говоришь, за какие деньги, ты же закладываешь сюда тонну всяких разных расходов. То есть, если это if something is produced manually, then you bring it to the market and you say, look, I've created this item, and it was done manually. So people spent their skill, their art, their capacity to generate a certain item because it was done manually. I say, okay, the value is very high, so I'm going to buy it because it was manually done. But the same kind of item can be generated not manually, but can be generated automatically on the basis of equipment or conveyor of some kind. And in that case, your costs will be running very, very low. As a result, very small alteration of the price, will make the owner of this business exorbitantly rich. For example, if for example, the person or businessman like you will be selling 100 items, anything, doesn't matter what, telephone or computer mouse or a pen. If you sell 100 items, it is not making you rich. But if you are selling 1 million items a day, and in that case you say, okay, I will make it cheap. I will make it very cheap. And you are actually coming down, you say 1 kopic down, but 1 penny down makes you very poor immediately. So when you bring your price down 1 penny, actually you will lose $1 million overnight. And if you increase the price of something per penny, it will make you exorbitantly rich overnight. You can become a millionaire just because you've increased the price per penny, just for 1 penny. So it's when you think in terms of scale, this масштаб, then you create for yourself something. But when you think about the so-called costless industries, то есть есть индустрии, которые построены на очень низких расходах. Like, for example, if you take telecommunication company, of course they have equipment, right? But when the tariff is increasing in price or decreasing in price, you understand that it costs really nearly nothing to the company who's providing this tariff, because the equipment is the same, right? The equipment is the same. The equipment is everywhere in the city. And then when they decide, for example, that a certain tariff will be a little bit more expensive for you, then you think, why? The equipment is the same, right? They're not spending more money to provide this telecommunications tariff to me. Why should I be paying more for that? Because the cost is very low. Why are you paying more? Why? Why are you paying more in that particular case? Because they provide a higher value, for example, in terms of data. Например, компания Мегафон проложила какой-нибудь безумный кабель в метрополитене, и вы говорите, теперь вы можете там качать данные в интернете, из интернета, находясь в метро, на скорости 350 мегабит в секунду. Вы говорите, сколько? Вы говорите, да, вот наш кабель теперь такое может. Вы говорите, нифига себе, да, я подписываюсь на Мегафон, например. Ну и так далее. То есть вы понимаете, что, в общем, никакой суперценности вы не получили, но вы готовы приплачивать чуть-чуть, потому что получилась какая-то другая ценность. Благодаря тому, что добавлена какая-то новенькая utility. Добавлена. Вот, so when you are generating value, you should be thinking in terms of utility and the value of this utility for the market. I think I will stop here today. I will continue next time along these lines. Переводчикам спасибо большое, но пока не уходите. Давайте быстренько мы обсудим парочку административных вещей. Сейчас я выключу. Нет, переводчики могут продолжать переводить, кстати. Переводчики, вы продолжаете переводить, чтобы не было недопонимания. Так, продолжаем делать домашнюю работу, и у нас будет коллоквиум дней через 10. Как я уже говорил, это будет игра, бизнес-игра. Мы будем проводить ее на платформе Discord. Discord. Найдите ее, просто чуть-чуть изучите. Ну, все правила будут описаны. Тем, кто участвует в коллоквиуме, разумеется, там будет такая же регистрация, да, Discord правильно, там будет такая же регистрация, как здесь. Вы там тоже напишите свои UIDs, и это будет вам зачтено. Например, участие в одном коллоквиуме простит вам 2 пропуска за лекции. Да, Discord, спасибо, Вячеслав. То есть участие в одном коллоквиуме простит вам 2 пропуска. И плюс ко всему, это может быть интересно. Почему? Потому что мы уговорили компанию МТС. А ничего, что я по-русски говорю, может, не по-английски говорить? Should I speak English rather? I'm asking my Chinese students. What is more preferable for you, Chinese? Oh, sorry, I can't speak Chinese. English or Russian? Because I can continue. Well, I suddenly switched to Russian. Well, assuming that my Russian students would profit by that, but I don't know what language is more preferable. You have the translation. Цинжун, вы хорошо переводите с русского языка, если я на русском языке говорю тоже? Или не очень? I can't hear you. So just either nod or say no. I don't know.
Actually, I think my Russian is that I cannot really understand what you said in Russian.
But if you have questions, okay. So we shall have a colloquium. Colloquium is a mini exam. It's a mini exam. The mini exam is going to take place on a different platform, not on Zoom. It's going to take place in Discord. It will be a business game. The business game is partnered by the big Russian telecommunication company, MTS. What are they going to give us? They're going to give souvenirs to you at the end of the game. Классно. Коллоквиум, да еще сувениры в конце. Это же просто прекрасно. Где такое видно? Чтобы а вы всем скажете, что вы в МГУ за участие в экзамене раздают сувениры. Прекрасно. Представляете, получаете пятерку, получаете сувенир от преподавателя. Какая классная идея. So you will get souvenirs. I mean the winners naturally, because this is a business game. Secondly, MTS said that they will choose the winners to participate in some of their social programs for the future. So you may potentially have employment with MTS later on. So it's also going to be quite good. So we have created 3 benefits for you. Прощенные 2 пропуска, so 2 classes missed will be forgiven. Souvenirs for the winners, and the inclusion in the list of MTS social programs in the future, where you can take part already as employees for the future. So it's going to be quite good. And the principle of colloquium for the future, I'm saying in advance. Of course, I'll be sending you later on the rules, but the principle is very simple. MTS will give you the task to develop a certain value for something they think is interesting for them in terms of business. And then the Discord will break you into groups automatically. And then you will discuss the value of this product in groups. And then you will explain it in a big hall. And then you will rate each other. You will rate each other. You will give each other marks, for example, good idea, bad idea, and so on and so forth. And then on the basis of that, smaller groups will be united into bigger groups. And at the end, we shall have 3 big groups with 3 ideas, top ideas. So, and MTS will judge and will decide for themselves whose idea was the best. I think it's a very interesting undertaking in general. So this is going to be quite an interesting game. And if we are successful with the first game, we shall have the second game and the third game and the fourth game by the end of the semester. After all, since this is a business course, you must have a business involvement to some extent, right? I think it's a good idea, actually, just to test your capacity to think along the business rails. Okay. Is everything clear? Daviel.
So we should just develop a value of something?
Yeah, we don't know yet, but they will tell you. So rule will be sent in advance. Now, rules will be sent to you in advance. And the rules are very simple as far as I see them.
Okay.
So rules will be sent to you in advance, and they will give us the case. MTS will provide the case. So they will provide the case, and we shall need to solve this case during Discord game. And everything will be done automatically by you, meaning I'm not involved. You get the case explanation from MTS. You are broken into groups, you decide into groups, you present the definitions, you rate each other's definitions, you return back to rooms, decide it further on, SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, again provided for the general hall. Everybody is again rating you. The top groups are rising up actually to the top, and then finally we have the winner. Okay, so that's very general how it works. Okay, so if we have no more questions, I hope that was